Hello, I'm Andrew Petrie, and this is the Scottish Football Podcast. All the news, views, and analysis you need on Monday, the 22nd of December. So there we have it. Wilfried Nancy finally has his first win as Celtic boss.
McGregor back in the middle, and James Forrest scores, and that rounds things off for Celtic. It's Forrest for 3-1.
Yes, his side found victory over 10-man Aberdeen, but will that be enough to silence the critics? Elsewhere on Sunday, league leaders Hearts maintained their advantage at the top of the table.
Braga, lovely header, Shankland, tight angle, scores! Doesn't matter about the tight angle when you are Lawrence Shankland, who has just doubled the Hearts lead.
Derek McInnes' side inflicting a first defeat in the league for Danny Rule. And a change of manager, but same old story for Kilmarnock.
Goal! Brian Graham has got a goal. He's been anonymous for most of the game. He's had to fight and battle, and it's the away side who lead by 1 goal to they break their goal drought.
We'll fill you in on all the weekend's action.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
Well, I'm delighted to be joined by the Herald's football writer at large, Stephen McGowan, and former Celtic, Motherwell, Kilmarnock and Dundee striker, Cillian Sheridan. Gents, plenty to get through after 2 huge games yesterday. Because it's fresher in our minds, we'll start with Celtic beating Aberdeen 3-1. Cillian, a first win for Wilfried Nancy as Celtic boss. But for those who didn't see it or didn't listen to the game, was it convincing for Celtic?
Yeah, just catching up on the highlights there and what kind of going off reports. I think Celtic probably got the result for me they should have had in previous games. Just going off chances they created. I felt, well, from what I've seen, the Hearts game and then the Dundee United game, I felt both of those should have been done at half time. Just Celtic didn't convert their chances and probably did against Aberdeen, and I think you get to a point where a manager can be to blame for so much, but if players are missing so many chances, I'm kind of like, you kind of start to feel like, well, it's not really his fault. But I think probably due a win, I think, and probably will relieve a lot of pressure for him that he definitely would have been welcoming.
Yeah, you mentioned that Dundee United game on Wednesday night that obviously United went on to win 2-1 and like you say, Cillian, Celtic missed a hatload of chances. Johnny Kenny particularly culpable there. Stephen, there was a lot of rumours after that game that Wilfried Nancy had 2 games to save his Celtic career. Basically, obviously we don't know how true those rumours were, but does this put kind of any doubt about Nancy maybe on the back burner until at least January, February time?
I don't know if I would be that optimistic. I mean, it's still a game-by-game thing, isn't it? I mean, today it was unbelievable at times when they had 30 efforts on goal, 31 actually, the 10 on target. But they did an XG of something like 4.5. Aberdeen's was less than 1. And yet, with minutes to go, they were sitting at 1-1 and people were wondering how on earth they could be in such a pickle. As Cillian said, it was like the previous games against Dundee United and so on, where they just went to, if you don't have a striker, you're going to find it really difficult to win games. As simple as that. And you know, they're missing some comical chances. And you began to wonder today, actually, if Wilfried Nancy was cursed by a lack of luck. As if, as much as anything, he was just a manager who was absolutely without good fortune. It came in the end, but would you say he is out of the woods yet? I don't think you can. I mean, Livingston away next week is awkward, to put it politely, although Livingston obviously have pretty deep problems of their own at the moment. And then, of course, it's into Rangers at home. I think it kept the wolf from the door today, because I think if Rangers had drawn level at the end of the day with Celtic on points, or you know, if they'd been going into that Old Firm game with a chance of overhauling them, Wilfried Nancy would have felt really severe pressure. So it gives him and it gives Celtic a quieter Christmas. Does it end the uncertainty? I wouldn't go that far.
And Cillian, just in terms of the dressing room, Stephen mentioned it's Livingston away next. Now, that's not always been a happy hunting ground for Celtic, but this Livingston team aren't looking like they're up to much. Would you expect a victory there? And do you think, particularly in the dressing room as well, they'll now have that confidence after beating Aberdeen to think, yeah, we can go in there and turn up and get the 3 points?
Yeah, I think the message over the last few games would have been kind of like keep believing in the process of everything. they'll look back, they'll probably do video analysis of the games and see all the chances they're creating. And I feel like if you're at Celtic, you can only go so many games or minutes playing. If you're creating chances like that, eventually guys are going to have to start converting them. And I feel like that just wasn't happening over the last few games. I do think it's a massive few games up until the leading up to the Rangers game. I kind of think he needs to win all of them to give himself some sort of cushion going into the Rangers game, so the Rangers game isn't kind of the be all and end all for him. So I think if he can go in with a few wins between now and then, it should relieve a little bit of pressure. But again, it's at the minute it is game by game. I feel like as soon as there's a blip, a draw, a loss, it's going to be, there needs to be changes and everything. So I think it does come. It's massive how they can convert the performances into wins, and just basically like converting chances. I think is massive. It's if there was a worry, it would possibly be that teams seem to kind of suss them out at half time, and managers at other clubs are making tweaks at half time, and then suddenly the second half is becoming different games. That would maybe be my only concern, but I think it just comes down to finishing chances.
Funny enough, Kelly, that was the weirdest thing today, is that actually that wasn't the case at the start of the second half, where, I mean, it was a freakish period where Mitov made 2 or 3 brilliant saves. I think they struck the woodwork 3 times, and you just thought, crikey, this is one of these days. As long as it's only 1 goal, then you know it's going to be precarious, it's going to be edgy. And the problem we've got is that the established strikers, Iheanacho is injured, Daiser Maeda is erratic, I think it's fair to say, in front of goal. I mean, he's had some amazing misses in the recent games. That was a purple patch last season.
I feel since he's been back out on the wing, he's looked a completely different player. He's actually he's putting a lot of things on the plate for strikers that he should have about 4 or 5 assists, I think, since he's switched back to the wing.
You mentioned those tactical tweaks. I think that was kind of taken out of Aberdeen and Jimmy Tillien's hands by that red card for young Dylan Lobban. We've got to talk about Aberdeen as well, Stephen. What did you make of their afternoon? Because obviously they had that red card. Dimitar Mitov had a really up and down game. What did you kind of make of them?
I mean, Jimmy Tillien said it himself. They were on the back foot from the first minutes. I mean, they never... Probably quite worrying for Celtic in that, like so many of their recent opponents, their first chance they scored from, and that's always going to be the concern with this system of Wilfried Nancy, is that they're going to concede goals. It doesn't look like a system that's going to be conducive to clean sheets. But Aberdeen didn't look like scoring at all until they did. I mean, they really scored with their first decent opportunity. Look, I mean, they were coming back from Prague on Thursday night. That was a heavy defeat. Never helps you coming back from a European game. Maybe we shouldn't read too much into it. Going into the game, they were the form team in the Premiership. They're up in the top 6 now. Given the way they started the season, I think they would have taken that. I don't think it's one to overreact to for Aberdeen. They've got Dundee United at home next weekend, 5:45 kickoff. They've got to get back in the saddle again, but I don't think they should be losing any sleep over what happened today, because I think Celtic, by recent standards, played pretty well, and the red card, which I think was right for the referee, just left them with an absolute mountain to climb.
And that's it. I feel like every week we talk about a particular manager under pressure, and at the start of this season we talked about Jimmy Tillien and the kind of credit that he had in the bank from the cup win almost kind of being completely diminished. But like you say, Stephen, they were the form team going into this game in the league. I think it was 23 points from a possible 30 before today. Cillian, do Aberdeen have their confidence back apart from today, obviously, which we can almost write off because of that red card?
I don't know. They've been a bit weird team to kind of they just kind of went under the radar with that good form. I would never have guessed that Aberdeen were the informed team in the league. They've just probably quietly gone about it all. They've kind of drifted out into the bottom 6, and then kind of a little bit out of the pressure or out of the eyes of everyone when everything else was going on. And I don't know if they'll have confidence back. I think from having such a poor start, they probably just needed to start to actually just grind out results and just get some wins under the belt, and then that's what I feel like they've done. They've just built on that. And like Stephen was saying, like I don't think the game against Celtic is where they would have been really pinning their hopes on. Yes, Celtic have been going through a little bit of a bad patch, but I think in the grand scheme of things, Aberdeen will be looking at just kind of, I think, solidifying their place higher up in the table before looking at going and beating Celtic, I think.
Now on to Tynecastle, where Hearts and Rangers served up a festive cracker with Derek McInnes' side coming out on top. Stephen, the post-match punditry seemed unanimous. Have we officially reached the stage where it's not too early to say Hearts are in the title race and might even be the favourites?
We've played 18 games. We're one away from the halfway point. Yeah, we're absolutely at that point. I think anybody who says otherwise is delusional. I mean, they're 6 points clear of Celtic. Okay, Celtic have a game in hand. They're 11 points clear of third place Motherwell with the same amount played. They're 12 clear of Rangers now. I mean, how can anyone say anything other than Hearts are absolutely in the race? I mean, I remember going and having a cup of tea with the chief executive, Andrew McKinley, in Glasgow quite some time ago, and he said, look, if after 19 games we're top of the league and we're in the frame, then people can talk about us as title contenders. There's nowhere for Hearts to hide any longer. They can't sail under the radar. That's gone. They're now right out there. They're front, left and centre of the stage. That's going to bring pressures of its own. And I have to say, I thought this today in the early stages, you worried that they were going to wilt. I mean, Emmanuel Fernandez had that header was converted by Bojan put it in the back post, and it was narrowly offside. I mean, it was really narrow. One of these ones where you're looking at the lines of Scotland and thinking, really? But it's probably just a half inch of his shoulder was over the foot of Stuart Finlay, I think. So after that, they really came into the game really strongly. You worried how they would cope without Craig Halkett. But, you know, they came into it, they got really strong, and they were really worthy winners in the end. And I mean, I know we keep saying it, but Cammy Devlin, I mean, he's a force of nature. I mean, if ever there was an overseas player who was born to play in the Scottish Premiership, it's Devlin, he's just perpetual motion. And I think he was absolutely the driving force of a performance where Hearts seemed to win every loose ball and be into everything, snapping into tackles. So they were well worthy of their 3 points, I think.
Yeah, I think that offside goal that was obviously disallowed kind of gave Hearts the kick they needed. And once they'd gone 2-0 up, Cillian, was there ever any doubt at that point?
I don't think so, no. I think as soon as the goal was disallowed, there was a massive change in the way the game was going. Hearts probably dominated the next 15-20 minutes, got their goal, and then just kind of always looked like they'd be the team to go on and win. And then once they got that first goal, it never really felt like Rangers were coming back into the game, or Hearts had it didn't really feel like there was any nerves there. They looked like they were a team that kind of knows how to see out a game. They looked confident, and they looked like a team leading the league. They looked like league leaders. They're starting to play like it, I feel. And then January will be massive. Everyone will be talking about Celtic and Rangers, but I think Hearts obviously will have, given their resources now, they can make a serious push if they need to. Probably without the same statement signings that Celtic and Rangers might have. I think Hearts will sign as good, maybe not big name players, but I think they'll, given the whole Jamestown analytics thing and everything, I think they'll fancy their chances.
Yeah, I think Islam Chesnikov is expected to come in, the winger from Kazakhstan, and I suppose the Brazilian midfielder Aju, who's barely played in the first half of the season. I think it was €2 million he cost Hearts in the summer. He'll come in like a new signing as well. Obviously, before they get into January, they've got the Edinburgh Derby. Now, that's never easy to predict, Stephen, but Hearts will be going into this one, and probably, without a word that Cillian used, without any nerves, really.
So they should, absolutely. I mean, Hibs have been flaky as well. I mean, I don't think Hibs have been particularly good in big games. So I think Hearts will go to Easter Road and they'll fancy their chances. They have to. That's the kind of game where you have to make a statement, where you have to say, look, you know what, even if they avoid defeat, then they'll be perfectly fine, but they should really want to go there and win all 3 points. as I say, Hibs have been unconvincing, and I think they have to fancy their chances.
That's it. You talk about statement wins. Obviously, Hearts have got a couple of them now. As for Rangers, it was their first defeat under Danny Rule and a first away defeat in 2025, incredibly. It did seem like they had turned the corner, but Cillian, they're now 12 points behind again, albeit with a game in hand. Is that them fully out of the title race?
Yeah, I think so. Unless they go on some amazing run, it would be very out of the blue right now. It's hard to really see that happening. Danny Rowe came in and probably steadied the ship a little bit and just kind of said it about Aberdeen, but he came in and just kind of like grinded out results, got them back to winning, climbed them back up the table. But I still think they're defensively, I think they're all over the place. They look like every team in the league can score against them. The defenders look nervous all the time. And I think again January is going to be massive for them. But you can only sign so many players. You can't go and sign 10, 11 players every window, and at the same time move 10 or 11 players as well. So I think there's going to be, I think both fans, Celtic and Rangers fans, are probably going to be disappointed at the end of January, I think.
Well, that's it, Stephen. Do you think there is going to be those wholesale changes from Rangers?
I think that would depend on who they can get out the door. I mean, there's certainly players who've come in and have been a disappointment. They'd be happy to offload, I would imagine. I mean, Chermiti, you look at the money paid for Chermiti.
Scored a goal today.
Well, I know, but it was a big mistake from Frankie Kent, I think, trying to head the ball back. And he finished it well, but I don't think anybody would say that Chermiti so far has been great value for money. And they can't be using their resources like that. That's the thing. I mean, I know people will say it's Kevin Fairwell. He's gone now. Ultimately for any club, and for Celtic, Rangers as much as anybody, you've got to get good bang for your buck. And I think Rangers and Celtic have failed to do that in the summer transfer window. And they've got big work to do to try and correct that in January. But as we're just discussing there, as Cillian's saying, that might be a disappointing window, because anybody you speak to will tell you it's a really hard window to do good business. It's just difficult to get the players you need. So, maybe generally it tends to be loan signings more than anything else. So I don't know how much scope they have, how much wiggle room they have. But I would imagine they would have to get one or two out before they could get one or two in.
Well, there was 4 games on Saturday afternoon, and we'll start at Rugby Park. Chris Doolan's first match as Killie interim boss, and the Ayrshire side lost again at home to Falkirk. Cillian, are there any signs of optimism down at Rugby Park?
I don't think so. I think the only thing they can look for is that other teams around them are equally as bad, really. That just kind of gives them a chance to climb out of it. Dundee are struggling, Livingston are struggling. That's probably their only real positive thing they can look at. Depending what happens in terms of them appointing a manager. Once a manager comes in, then players know actually what's happening. Heard good reports about Chris Doolan around the place, but other than that, I don't really know where Kilmarnock are going, if they're going to go down that route, or they're going to try and maybe bring in someone from outside of the game, outside of the Scottish football. I don't know. But then probably need to change something. Stating the obvious, they need to change something, I think, sooner rather than later.
As for Falkirk, Stephen, I was talking to a Falkirk fan earlier today and asking him, does he have any fears of relegation? He basically said no. Do you think that's kind of the unanimous feeling across the Falkirk support?
It should be. It should be. I mean, they're on 24 points level with Aberdeen. They're banging the door for the top 6, never mind relegation. I think that's the great thing about Falkirk is, when the team comes up, you're looking to say, what are they going to bring to the party? And I think Falkirk have brought so much to the Premiership. Great support, good style of football, a manager who's committed to playing the game the way he wants to play it. They've been struggling to score goals. I think they hadn't scored in 5 or something before Brian Graham's winner yesterday. But, Falkirk was a good opponent for them. Kilmarnock were good opponents for them at that particular time because they're struggling so much. But, yeah, I don't think Falkirk should be worrying about relegation. I think they should be looking up to the top 6.
Now, League Cup winners St Mirren defeated Livingston, but all the post-match talk centred around a goal that was ruled out for a very soft foul in the build-up. If you haven't seen it, Livingston defender Danny Finlayson went down holding his face after a challenge from Dan Nlundulu. Cillian, what were your thoughts on that one?
Do you know, I watched the highlights and I've missed that bit.
That's how bad a decision I think it is.
Andrew, I will happily give you my view on that.
Go on, Stephen.
I think Finlayson should be absolutely embarrassed. I think he should be embarrassed by the way he went down in instalments. He went down late, claiming this flailing arm from Nlundulu. And I mean, I'm amazed that VAR looked at that. I don't think we should be amazed by anything VAR does now, but I thought it was farcical. I mean, there's no way you can be rolling a goal out for that. As I say, Finlayson should be having a good look at himself in the mirror because he's bought a foul there. And I know that's hardly unusual these days, but nah, not for me. I thought that was a really poor decision from VAR to chuck that goal off.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone in that one, Stephen. Well, Dundee United and Hibs shared the spoils at Tannadice. Draws sort of seem to be the undoing of both of these sides this season. Cillian, we talked about how Hearts will be feeling going into the derby. How will Hibs be feeling?
Probably, I think in terms of form, obviously Hibs will be under a bit of pressure. They haven't, like you said, they've had too many draws this season. A lot of pressure on them based off how well they done last season. And they've kind of struggled a little bit with that, I think. Generally, I've always kind of fancied Hearts in the Edinburgh derbies over the last few years, even more so this year, I think. And I think David Gray will probably just be looking to get Hibs back. He probably will be disappointed with the game yesterday. I felt like they were in control, created a lot of chances. Probably should have had the game won, and not let kind of Dundee get away with a point. So probably be looking at that with there's no better chance for them to bounce back, and it kind of puts everything, they're kind of poor form. If you're comparing it to last season, you say it is poor form, but like they'll be looking at a chance. If they go and beat Hearts, then everything's all rosy again, isn't it? So
yeah, absolutely. Finally, Motherwell enjoyed a 1-0 win over Dundee. Stephen Presley talked about needing a number of windows to get Dundee to what he thinks is the right level. Stephen, is that realistic for a manager to ask for in this day and age?
No, I don't know if it's realistic for Big Elvis. I think when the fans are screaming for his head on a weekly basis, it feels like. I mean, you know, he keep coming back to this. He was told by Gordon Strachan before he took the job it was the most difficult job in Scottish football. I don't know how true that is. I'm sure a couple of managers at Rangers and Celtic would tell you otherwise. But yeah, he came in up against it, and it's not getting any easier for him, is it? I mean, they didn't really threaten in that game, I have to say. He's just got to hang in there. He's got to try and hope they can recruit well in January. But, you know, Dundee are just one of a number of teams, and this is the way it always comes to a January window, where they're looking for Hail Marys, really. They're hoping for something to hold them out of a mess. The only good news for them is that you look at Livingston, and, you know, I think Livingston have got 12 wins in the last 73 Premiership games. That's over a couple of campaigns, obviously. So, as Cillian referred to with Kilmarnock earlier, there's other teams there propping them up, but they can't rely on them forever.
No, they certainly can't. Well, that's all we've got time for. Remember, we are here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast bright and early every day. So to make sure you don't miss out, subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on your phone. Many thanks to Cillian and Stephen for joining me, and thank you for listening. I'm off for Christmas, so have a happy holiday, folks. See you later.
For everything you need to know about your team this season, download the BBC Sport app. All the latest news, goal updates, stats and scores, and insight and analysis. Just select your club to get the biggest stories and best content at your fingertips. What a result. Download the BBC Sport app for everything you need to know about your team this season.